I'm Matt Corser from the Strengthening and Sustaining Ohio Suicide Prevention Coalition's initiative. Welcome to Segment 11 on reporting your CRA results. Our training agenda for this segment is to describe CRA report elements and structures, to introduce reporting processes for funded coalitions, and to identify guidance documents and other supporting materials that will support you as you work through the reporting process. As always, all of these resources are on the webpage, including this video, supporting materials like this PowerPoint slide deck, and guidance documents to help you with submitting your report and editing the report that you receive. Let's talk first about why your CRA report is important. Your CRA report is designed to communicate your community's overall and dimension-specific level of readiness for comprehensive approaches to suicide prevention. We're hoping that it's going to provide your community with new information. We're going to hope that it's going to help set the agenda for your coalition and your community around suicide prevention. We're hoping it will build the legitimacy and capacity of your coalition, and that it will enhance the ability of your coalition and community to make more informed, evidence-based decisions about suicide prevention. A good CRA report is going to really have 4 sections. The first on background, the second on methods, the third on results, and the fourth on really interpreting your findings and beginning to explore strategies. We'll talk more about each of these sections next. Section 1 of the report really is about background and information. It's going to define your problem of practice, in this case, readiness for comprehensive approaches to suicide prevention, including the CDC strategies. It's going to describe the tri-ethnic community readiness model. It will give a few details about your community as a whole. And it's going to actually also explain the tri-ethnic community readiness model, including the 9 stages of community readiness and the 5 dimensions of readiness. Section 2 focuses on methods, and it's going to describe the process for using the community readiness model, defining your key respondents and community sectors. It'll talk a little bit about what you mean by community. It will talk about conducting key informant interviews and the scoring process to determine readiness levels. This section also will explain dimensions of community readiness and briefly describe your community's process of scoring. Section 3 presents your CRA report results. It includes the average combined scores table and calculated scores. And it's going to also identify an overall stage of readiness for your problem of practice. And that really is that total calculated score that we ended up with when we completed our scoring process. And in this section, it will take that total score and also map it to a stage of readiness as well. Section 4 is really going to talk about highlighting and interpreting the findings from your CRA. It's going to analyze those findings. In general, we're hoping that your readiness is going to be about the same across all those dimensions, but it may be that one or more dimensions has a lower score than the others. And that's going to tell you a lot about where to focus your strategies to build readiness. This section also allows you to highlight areas of high community readiness and areas in which work will be needed to build community readiness. This section of the report also can include next steps and strategies, and the Tri-Ethnic Readiness Model Manual has a lot of great strategies for building readiness. It's important also that as you build this report and begin to share it, that you take it as an opportunity to engage the community in discussion. Let's talk a little bit about some general community readiness assessment reporting tips. The first is to keep it simple. The second is really to focus on what your community really needs in order to move forward. You can use resources such as the handbook. You just need to cite it, and the second page of the manual has citation guidance. You also can look at what other communities have done related to community readiness and reports. And the Ohio SPIF PFS initiative, whose link is on your screen right now, provides 13 examples of what community readiness reports look like for other Ohio communities. All you need to do is click on any county shaded in red and look under Assessment for that community's CRA report. Our goal is to make the CRA report development process as easy as possible for you and your coalition. As a result, we're going to send you a web link that asks you to input key elements from your CRA. It's going to be a unique link for your coalition, and we're going to ask you to input those elements into the interface. We will actually create your CRA report for you. We'll take what you submit, and we'll merge it into a report template that's customized to your coalition. We're going to send you a draft report and allow you and your coalition to review it and to provide any edits that are needed. The guidance documents that accompany this training video provide that process for making edits, for reviewing the draft report, and due dates for when we need the reports back in order to get them finalized. With the web-based reporting interface, here are key elements that we're going to ask you to upload, including the number of CRA interviews your coalition completed, the date each interview was completed, sectors that each key informant best represents. We're going to ask you to upload the data on your combined or consensus score sheet, including your dimension-specific and overall community readiness scores. We're going to ask you to include quotations that illustrate each of the 5 dimensions. And this is optional, but it can help bring your community readiness assessment findings to life. And there are 2 brief reflection questions that we are going to ask you to answer as well. As you prepare for the process of uploading your CRA results into the online web interface, here are a few things to keep in mind. First, have your materials and information ready. Review the guidance documents. Join drop-in calls if you want to talk through the process. Have basic interview information, such as the number, dates of interviews, and sectors available. Have your combined or consensus scores table ready. Identify quotations as you review your interview transcripts. And when you identify a quotation that illustrates your community's readiness, flag that quotation for easy reference. That's really going to help you speed up the upload. And as a reminder, quotations are optional, but they're going to help bring your community readiness assessment results to life for you, your coalition, and for your stakeholders. On the screen right now, you'll see a screen cap of the first screen on the web-based reporting interface. That first question is going to ask how many interviews your community conducted. Down below, it will ask you to actually complete a table that includes the date each interview was completed and the sector represented by that key informant. And if you have less than 8 interviews, please just leave those extra rows blank. Screen 2 is going to ask you to input your consensus scores table. Basically, those consensus scores for each of the 5 dimensions for up to 8 interviews that you completed. It'll ask you to also input your combined score total and the stage score, which is the combined score total divided by the number of interviews. Screen 2 is going to ask you to input your overall community readiness score. And as a reminder, that's the total sum of your stage scores divided by the 5 dimensions. And you'll see as well on this screen that there are back and next buttons that let you go back and change anything that isn't right or go forward if you need to do that. Screen 3 is where you'll input the quotations if you do choose to include them. You can enter quotations that are up to 2 short sentences in length. And if you don't have a quotation for 1 or more dimensions of community readiness, you can just go ahead and leave that box blank. Screen 4 in the reporting interface simply asks for brief answers to 2 reflection questions. The first is, after scoring your interviews, what areas or dimensions do you feel need to be emphasized or focused on in your community? Were there dimensions that scored particularly low? And was there anything that you were surprised to see after you scored? These reflections are going to be merged into your report, so please write your reflections in complete sentences. For each of those questions, you may enter up to 3 sentences, right around 750 characters total for each of the questions. After you've entered your reflections, simply click Submit, and you are done. This segment has focused on a few things. It's focused on describing the CRA report elements and structures so that you have background on what's in your CRA report and why. We've introduced a CRA report template and a reporting process where you can input your CRA reports online, and the leadership team will create your CRA report for your coalition. And we've highlighted supporting materials that will guide you through the reporting process. Segment 12 is going to focus on strategies to build community readiness and on developing a plan to build readiness in the areas that you want to work in.